Day-to-Day Philosophy, Part 1.
So here we are, and we've got the most unusual subject that we've ever had on a MicroBizMatters Day, and this is our 7th annual MicroBizMatters Day, as you all know, and our subject is philosophy. And stay tuned, because the fantastic guests I've got with me are going to make philosophy seem like the go-to thing for you in 2021. And I've got Jim with me, and Jim runs the most and owns the most fantastic music pub in Scarborough called Indigo Alley. But I'll be asking him later about how he's had to change the concept of his business, which must have taken some thinking about. And Katie's a student. In fact, she today doesn't know it, but she's now the voice of students in the UK because she's doing a philosophy and enterprise degree. Is that right, Katie?
Yeah. Philosophy, business and classics.
Well, and classics as well, right? Well, we won't be going there today, but that's absolutely fantastic. I met Katie at Newcastle Startup Weeks, and she's done some fantastic interviews about enterprise and philosophy and how it goes together. So I'm delighted to have you both with us. So I'd like to ask you both, I'll start with Katie. What does philosophy actually mean to you?
So philosophy to me is a few different things, but mainly it's my route to living a good life. So it's values, it's things that I can implement in my day-to-day life and just try and be the best person that I can be. So my philosophy is Stoicism, which you know quite a lot about, Tony, and it's an ancient philosophy that was founded in Athens, so the 3rd century BC, by someone called Zeno, and it's all about rationality and values. So there's 4 core values to Stoicism, and it's courage, wisdom, justice, and temperance. And for a Stoic, they are the core values that I try and live my life by. So every single day, lots of different situations will come our way, and I have to decide what virtue is right for me to implement in this situation. So philosophy for me is my compass to living a good life.
Oh, lovely, a compass. Yeah, that's great. No, I love that. That's really good. And Jim, how about you?
I wish I'd had her answer.
It's great. Do you like the Stoics yourself? I
love Stoic philosophy. I came to philosophy at a point where I needed some help and I needed a purpose, if you like. I needed a way to put my life back together and to try and find a way forward. And so I've been deeply interested in Stoicism. I like the Socratic method of just arguing about literally everything, but also because I'm not a philosophy student, I like not an official philosophy student, but I like taking little bits from all of them. So just listening to the thought change throughout the years, it gets back to the idea. You go back to Socrates: the unexamined life isn't worth living. Right. Once you start examining your life, you just take little nuggets from wherever you find them. And in the same way that you wouldn't expect to, like, I'm not a mechanic, but I've got half an idea how to hold a screwdriver. And then if somebody else has already done the thinking, I can then operate that screwdriver. I tend to take the same approach with philosophy. I don't think there's anything particularly unique about the human experience. So the fact that there must have been all of these thoughts had before, there's got to be something that can be helpful to me in that moment, at that time, that somebody else has already thought of. So you just go pick that up and go, how does this fit into the situation that I've got right at this moment? And you move forward from there. So that can be anything from Buddhism to Marxism to Stoicism to whatever's going. It's just a way of not reaching for the whiskey bowl.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, it's your own pick and mix, isn't it? I mean, all we're talking about is your own life, and it's not about actually saying, well, you know, I only like what Diogenes the dog said, kind of thing. It was my favorite philosophy, living in a barrel of wine and that kind of stuff. But you know, it's not about picking just a favorite philosopher and going with that. It's actually understanding what they're actually saying about life and living and virtue and all the good things. And I mean, I think some branches of philosophy are incredibly hard to study and very, very boring. But I think what we're talking about are things that people can just take what they like, that fits with their values. And it's, as Katie said, a compass going forward. So in going forward into 2021, both of you will have had some different experiences like we've all had of 2020. And Jim, going back to your business, is there anything that, you know, you've had to change, adapt, all sorts of things in 2020 and to move forward into 2021? Are there some things you've learned that philosophy has actually helped you with in 2020 that you can actually be taking forward into 2021? You know, some things you maybe learned about yourself and life and what you value.
It's so, as you said at the beginning, I run a music venue in town, and I also run a small festival, and those two things interact with each other. We bring the people through the pub, open mic nights and those kind of things, and then, you know, because my background is music and recording, and as well as beer and having fun. But what we've had to do, obviously, you know, we couldn't pack 100 people into a small place and, you know, do those kind of things. So we've had to look at different ways of getting the artists out there. We've been recording people, we've been doing the online thing, we've been doing whatever. But that live performance of music is about an emotion that connects the performers, the audience, and it's about that moment in time. It's a unique thing. I know we've videoed live performances for years now, but even so, there's something qualitatively different about being in the moment and experiencing it for yourself. Trying to move forward, instead of just trying to recreate that thing, recognizing that that is its own thing, and that the video of a performance or the recording of a performance can be different. So it could be a different experience for the musician, different experience for the audience member. So we moved away from the idea of a, you know, like 4 or 5 people in a line performing to the camera, you know, almost as if the camera is the fake audience. And we put it into a, like you're a fly on the wall and you're recording a particularly good rehearsal.
Yeah.
Rehearsal, then. Nice. So that was a way of being able to provide gig goers and audience members with a musical experience, a live musical experience. It's still recorded live. It's still, people are still playing live. I mean, you're watching it disjointed in time, but that's another thing we could argue about philosophically. But the performance is live, the moment is live, the musicians are interacting with each other, which is a big part of a live performance. But instead of it being performed to you as such, it's like we felt that the experience would be beneficial to alter the perspective. So to be able to come into it from a different point of view and to give the viewer something that feels qualitatively different and yet still excellent. Because trying to recreate, you can't recreate that feeling of trying to, you know, hold your pint while somebody's jiggling you around, whilst they're playing your favorite song, while it's dark and sweaty, and, you know, you can't recreate that back in your home. You just can't. So you accept that that is its own thing, and you don't try and redo that. You don't try and remake it. You don't try and pass off some plastic version of it. You contemplate what else there is that is relevant and interesting about the experience, and then you try and package that in a way that you can do. In the same way, we also moved into doing food. Like we moved to doing sit down gigs, much more stripped down acoustic performances, and providing, you know, we brought in a wood fired oven. That's a whole nother story, right? I redesigned my entire pub. It was a nightmare, but it was in the same way. It was that thing of like, instead of just sitting back half drunk with my business partner going, wouldn't it be great if we did food? After a month of not doing anything, right, Christ, can't do this. You know, let's actually do something. And that's the moment when those kind of, like I mentioned before, I found philosophy in a particularly difficult part of my life, and it helped me restructure some of the things. It helped me figure out that no matter how bad things are actually for me at this moment, it's not taking away from my own experience of pain or misery or any of those things, but it's recognizing that other people have been through this and there's probably a route out of it. There's probably a way. Stoicism is a fantastic example. That philosophy of being able to, what's the thing where you're supposed to be able to, sorry, I'll let you actually talk about the parts of stuff. I'll talk about it from a bar end.
Where it's like acceptance, so sort of accepting the thing that's happened and saying the good. So there's something called a more fatty, which is I have like loads of different coins here. I don't know if you can see. So
yeah.
The more fatty, and then on the back it has a little quote from Nietzsche. But Nietzsche wasn't a Stoic, but it says not merely to bear what is necessary, but to love it. And Epictetus, who you may have heard of, one of the 3 main Stoic philosophers, he had something called the art of acquiescence. And it's that idea basically that no matter what happens to you, there's some, like, you just love it. There's something to be found. It was fated. It is coming your way. So you make the best of that situation. Like, I'm like, you have found philosophy in a difficult time. And I think that's why it's resonated so much with us, because it's no matter what life throws at us. And this year we've all been through a pandemic. It's been crazy. Who knows what's in store for next year? Like, I'm ready to just take it because I don't have another choice. Like, I'm just gonna embrace whatever comes my way. And I think that's why it's so amazing to have philosophy in your life for that reason.
I think the point you mentioned earlier about being a compass, Katie, really that's been echoed just then in Jim's words, really, because he had something to hang on to, like in terms of he wasn't creating something old out of the situation.
No.
He was creating something new to deal with the situation, and that is incredibly fulfilling in its way, isn't it? It's almost this concept that philosophy, I got back to it again about 10 years ago when I had a year out in Malta and I came back and resigned from all sorts of things that were just getting in the way of me really enjoying life. And I got back to it, and it was, and I would say it was the kind of, it's not in the book, but it's a kind of equanimity, really. It's a kind of that acceptance that, lovely. Oh, thank you very much, Jim. That's brilliant. Katie, fantastic. That's absolutely brilliant. There is a book, ladies and gentlemen, and it's called The Happipreneur. And that's when I say the book, I'm referring to that. Very good. It's a wonderful book. Thank you very much for reviewing it, both of you, and reading it. It's great. But basically, it's that kind of acceptance, that equanimity that, all this stuff has happened to loads of people before, down the ages, and there is a way out of it. And the first way out of it is to just accept that stuff happens to us. And a lot of people think, well, philosophy must be boring, dull kind of thing. But no, it actually allows you to be very creative, because you're actually interested in creating the next actual moment, rather than thinking too much about the things you can't control by your thoughts and actions. So that's great. Katie, what about the students? Because there's been a lot in the press, media about students finding it very difficult, especially those that have just gone up there for freshers' weeks and various things at universities. How can philosophy actually help people, sort of like cope with, difficult surroundings, basically? Because you're always positive and you're always cheerful and various things, but how has philosophy helped you with that?
So, I try and be positive and cheerful all the time, but sometimes I'm human, and sometimes it's just too much, and I fall prey to passions, and I'm not the most positive person at times, but most of the time I am, and that's what matters. But so it goes back to what we're saying about kind of just starting with that acceptance and then just embracing everything that happens. But for students, this year has been insane. Obviously, I mean, the last time I was at university was March. And I had like many months of just studying from home and trying to create my own schedule, and my productivity's been off. So I can understand why so many students are struggling. But we just have to kind of accept this, and hopefully next year it goes back to normal. I think it will with this vaccine. I'm praying that it does go back to normal, because I'm like, it goes back to what you said, Jim, about you cannot recreate that experience of being in a pub and having that music and kind of dancing around. It just, you cannot do it. And this is lovely chatting over Zoom, and I've had many Zoom calls, but you don't get the passion from the lecturer, or you don't get like that intimate sort of conversation about the seminars, and it's just really, really hard to stay positive sometimes. But I think without this philosophy, I would have not been able to be this positive, happy person that I am. And going back to what you said before, Tony, it's a bit of a digression, but about philosophy seeming boring. It can be boring, especially from an academic standpoint. Like I'm doing an ethics module at the minute, and it's all about Immanuel Kant and Hegel, so obscure German philosophy. And it's just like, I'm thinking to myself, why did I pick this module? But it's the best thing about Stoicism or other philosophies is that Stoicism is the most practical out the bunch. So you don't have to be a philosophical person. You don't even have to know anything about philosophy to embrace this philosophy, and that's the best thing about it. It's really practical. So yeah, anyone who thinks they can't get interested in philosophy because they're not academic or they've never been interested in it, like, just push that thought aside. Like, if you ponder the universe and ask questions about why am I here and stuff like that, you are a philosopher in my sense. You don't have to have this philosophy degree or something like that.
Yeah, no, I think the other thing is that you'll actually find all the self-help gurus and all the people that you can pay $4,000 or something for a 5-day seminar. Actually, all they've done is nick what the philosophers have said over the years, because the philosophers were the psychologists, weren't they, really, of their day, and basically they were just looking at what it is to live a life and how to do it. So yeah, I think most stuff academically is boring, actually. I think even you said in your review of the Happipreneur, that basically that a lot of business books are boring. And I think actually studying most things, I actually think business schools kill the whole concept of enterprise as I understand it, really. It's awful. I mean, you don't need business plans and various things, but I do think it helps to have certain values that you can take forward when anything happens, almost. I mean, I'm not being prescriptive. I don't know what those are to you two, but have there been situations in the last year, in 2020, and we won't talk about it after this question, Katie, have there been any things where you've thought, well, I'm not going to do that because I don't actually believe that that's the right thing to do, that by thinking of things by philosophy, or you might have decided not to travel, or you decided not to spend so much time on a particular subject, or you might have decided to actually spend less time with certain people that were actually, not making life very pleasant, or whatever. Are there any things that you've actually reverted to in philosophy, your own personal philosophy that have helped you through the tough times?
So like, obviously I studied business classics and philosophy, and originally I intended just to do business and philosophy, but I ended up taking classics because there's timetable clashes and it worked out easier. But this year, in second year, when you pick your modules, so like that defines the rest of my degree. So I could have chose to drop one of the subjects, and I really didn't enjoy business during my first year. Going back to what we just talked about, it's all theory and no practical knowledge. It's very boring, and I hate saying that because I feel really bad being a business student saying that, but it's true. And I was really struggling with the idea of dropping business. I thought, I know I'm entrepreneurial, I know I have these values that one day I would like to set up a business of mine, and I had this voice in my head saying, well, you need a business degree to do that. You cannot set up a business without this business degree. So I ended up sticking with it, but it was this battle between my love of philosophy and this kind of side of wanting to study business because I feel the pressure and the need to study business. And I talked to a few different people. Paul was one of them who really, really helped us. And he was like, I studied geography. You don't have to have a business degree to like set up a business. And I was like, that's so true. But I ended up sticking with it and doing a few different modules. So I've done a career module where I'm working with Paul, and I'm going to do a module where it's a project module. So it's all about the Savvy Stoic, and I'm going to set up the website. I'm going to set up the YouTube channel. So I'm really excited for that, and that's going to be next year. But that was like, I was going back and forth. I was really unstoic. I was yes, I'm going to drop business. No, I'm not going to drop business. And it was just this like few weeks of absolute hell with undecidedness. And then I thought, I'm just going to stick with it and accept it. And then I woke up and I was like, right, we're making this decision. We're doing it. But like, I lost philosophy at a certain time down that route. And then I found it afterwards. It was just so difficult. But I feel like I've made the right choice, and philosophy helped us get there because I was like, I'm choosing this and I am accepting this now. This is the way I'm moving forward. But that's probably been one of this year the hardest things. Even though we're going through a pandemic, I didn't know what to do. Like it was like I lost that compass and I couldn't find my way.
Yeah, fantastic. No, that's a great example. I mean, and I think the other thing is that, you know, what you actually get is a way of, and it kind of like Jim said this at the beginning about like the Socratic arguing kind of thing with yourself. I think in some ways having, you know, looked at some philosophy and looked at how it's created almost by arguing amongst themselves, or followers, you know, asking somebody question after question after question. They must have been, you know, so annoying, all these followers, you know, but then they argued things through, didn't they? And then they actually took a decision to move forward in life, kind of thing. And that's all you're really doing. That's really great. Love that example.
Friday, the 8th of January, 2021. Follow the hashtag MicroBizMatters.